to talk about David's childhood. We're going to know how he defines success and what does he think of success. And David is just going to walk us through his life and what are his plans for the future. So you're more than welcome to ask any questions in the middle, at the end, in the beginning. So first of all, I want to start by asking, how do you define success and like a successful life? Like, what does it mean to you?
Sure. I'll face here so I can see you all. I think when you're younger, and I was just in high school a couple of years ago, I'm 25 now, so I was in high school, then I went to college at Yeshiva University, and so I only I think 4 or 5 years out from school. When I was in school, my vision of success was very different. I cared what my friends thought about me. I was on the sports team, so I played basketball. That was important to me. And then when I graduated, it shifted to wanting to make a lot of money, which I'm sure is probably a big desire of a lot of you guys here. But now what I've realized, and they go hand in hand, is that being happy and enjoying what you do on the day-to-day is the true testament to success. When you love what you do, then the money comes with it, the relationships come with it, everything great comes too. But if your pursuit is of money or something else external, you can't really be successful or happy. And so as Esther mentioned, I launched a company just about 8 months ago. Michael's actually one of the employees in the company, so that's why he's here with us in the back there. But I never knew I would be in AI, and I never knew that I would have a tech startup. When I was younger, I was a personal trainer. That's how I started my career. I thought I was going to do that forever. I wanted to open my own gym. It was a lot of fun. And then that evolved, and then I worked at a truck company. I was selling garbage trucks, which again, another really weird thing to be in, but I had a family friend who was starting a business. So I joined him there, and my AI startup actually helps waste management companies sell. So it all led to a path that makes sense. But I think as a young person, when you're in high school, when you're in college, you're so set on thinking, what am I going to do when I'm 21? When I'm 25, what I'm going to do? My parents have expectations from me. My friends are all successful or they're doing other things. And you get a bit lost in trying to appease everybody. And so if I look back when I was 17, 18 years old, the one thing that I wish I would tell myself is like, be a little lighter on yourself. You don't need to have the answers figured out today. Go through the process, learn as much as you can. And then the path to what you ultimately want to do will become clear later on. Mm-hmm. So I'd start there.
Yeah. So, but is there like a point in your life where you actually like, where it was like, oh no, like this is not the path that I want to do. This is not the path that I want to be on. And actually I want to shift to being successful and like making money and like building a company and all those stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know, how old is everybody in this room, by the way, like on average? 16, 17, 18. Okay, awesome. So I graduated a bit early, so I went, because I skipped a grade when I was younger. I think I graduated when I was like 18, high school. So from 18 till around 22 when I finished college, I basically partied for like 4 years. And then maybe we shouldn't be saying that in high school, but you guys are old enough. And so when I was there, I thought what I was doing was making me fulfilled. I thought I was happy. I had a lot of external validation from my friends. I was cool. I was popular. But then one day I felt completely gutted. I felt like I had no purpose in life. I reflected on everything that I did the last 4 years, and it was really meaningless. I remember that moment. It was a very painful moment. I was like, there's no way that I can live the next 20 years of my life this way, because I know people that are later in life and that are still partying and still living that life, and it's not a substance life, right? You're left feeling empty always. So in that moment, I made a decision, and I'm going to live a life with purpose, and I want to leave an impact on this world. Money was important to me too, but it was more important that I would do something that would change the way that people operate and the way that the world exists. And so that's when I started the personal training, and that might seem like a weird segment, but to me, that was a way of helping people in an area that I was familiar with. I was going to the gym a lot, so it made total sense. Success evolves, so even if your life is looking one way at a certain point, in 5 years from now, it may be different. In 10 years from now, it may be different. You never have to do the same thing your entire life. Maybe some of your parents are in the same businesses their whole lives, but especially in today's day and age, you can do one thing for 5 years and then another thing for 5 years, and it can all be great. And so when I look back at success, and even as I define it today, I want my company to be super successful. I want to go public. I want to sell the company, but it's not the rest of my life, right? I see this as like a portion of my life, and I'll be fully committed to it now. And then in 5 years, I might do something completely different. Maybe I'll do a nonprofit. Maybe I'll be in a different field. But not defining where you are today, I think is super important in being successful.
Mm-hmm. We said, like in the poster that I put, how to overcome like social pressure and like feeling pressured, like that you're not in the right way, that you're not doing what everyone is doing. So how have you handled situations where social pressure or others' expectations conflicted you with like personal or professional goals? And what advice would you give for staying true to yourself and to your own path?
Sure. So I'll say this. One, you never stop caring what people think about you, even as you become more successful. In fact, it actually comes up more because now you're successful. Now you have an ego about what you've accomplished. And so you actually care more. You're like, are they going to see me successful? Do they know how successful I am? And then you actually start to think about that in a really intense way. But the moment that you stop caring at least a little bit more than you do today is when things can start to manifest in your life. So I remember when I left college, I always had an unconventional path. Actually, when I was in college, my professors always would tell me, they're like, you're never going to be successful. Like, they told me that straight up. I don't know if they should have said that or they shouldn't, but they did. And it affected me for sure for a couple of years. And then when I graduated college, a lot of the friends that I was spending a ton of time with, partying and doing other stuff, I no longer wanted to associate with them. And so I basically cut off all of my friends that I went to college with. And for about 6 to 12 months, I hung out with nobody. I was working like 12 hours a day and I was completely dialed in. It was lonely for a bit, but I also was loving that the success was coming in. I was making a ton of money, but I had to not care what they thought about me and being alone in order to manifest those things. And I know I can even just like being here in a high school now, when you're in a high school, it's almost impossible to not care what your friends think about you. You spend every second of the day with them, you compare grades, you're all the sports teams. It's like your entire life. It's all that matters at this point. But what I will say, and it may be hard to hear, is when you graduate high school, you'll likely have new friends. Maybe some of your friends will stay with you. And then when you graduate college, those friends will evolve too. So as much as the people around you today might feel like they have such an impact in your lives, in 10 years from now, when you're married and you have kids, like those people may or may not be there. But if they're genuine friends and genuinely care about you, they won't judge you for the decisions that you make, even if it's not aligned with who they are today.
So I just want to pause the conversation for right now. Like, does anyone have questions that you want to ask David? Yeah.
Yeah. So where did you go to college and what did you study?
I went to Yeshiva University in New York, and I studied marketing and management.
Did you go there with any of your friends, or you completely made your friends there?
I went there with like 3 friends, but most of my friends went to different schools. Some of them went to Israel for the year. I didn't go, so I went straight in there.
Was it like a weird shift for you? Like, were you like nervous about it?
For sure, yeah. And try to think back to how I felt on the first day. Definitely was different. The first couple weeks, you don't really know anybody. You're just like kind of doing your own thing. Thankfully at that school, like people are very like-minded, and so was able to make friends fairly quickly. But yeah, the change was for just you're in a new place, you don't know anybody there, you don't know the campus, you don't know your classes, but it's only for like a week or two, and then you quickly get over that.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to ask, because we went on the topic of like colleges and stuff, and most of us in this room are applying to colleges or thinking about going to college and looking at and doing the research and stuff like that. So do you think that going to college or like getting a degree defines your success? And like whether if it's like for short term or long term, do you think?
Sure. First, are there any like teachers here that would be upset by an answer? I'm sure there are. I think that every person is different. For me, college didn't help me, but I also didn't take it seriously, and I wasted the 4 years that I was there. I have a lot of friends that did really well in school and are now lawyers and doctors, and that's great too, right? So I think if you're clear, which is very hard to be clear when you're in high school about what you want to do with your life and the career you want to start in, college could be a factor of that. If you have a family business or you want to be an entrepreneur, then joining that from after high school could be a great opportunity for you as well. But the problem is that when you decide not to go to school, you oftentimes are like, oh, I want to figure it out. And then you end up wasting a couple of years where you could have been in the great education and learned something. So my answer would be different depending on the person that I'm talking to. But I think that the best experience that you can have, and you can still do this when you're in college, is work for somebody who's successful, whether it's your own family, whether it's other businesses, take advantage of internships. The best experiences that I have in operating my own business, because again, I'm a first-time founder with no prior experience, but I'm managing employees, I'm managing payroll, all those things I would have no idea how to do had I not worked at another startup for somebody else. So the best thing to do, even when you're in high school, work for a family friend, work in an office, after classes, remotely. That would be my advice.
How did you know you wanted to go into business? What was that spark for you?
When I was like 6 years old, I was selling like candy on the street, and then my grandmother would come and tie the whole thing, and I loved that. Then I was selling baseball cards when I was 10. Then I was personal training when I was like 14, people that were older than I was. So I always had that internal drive to just be successful, and never was something that came out of nowhere. And then as I grew older, it evolved into a business. But when I was younger, I just knew that I wanted to do something and make a ton of money. And then that desire evolved into something greater.
And how do you combine spirituality with business?
Sure.
Because like this is the topic of your podcast. So.
Right. Yeah, great question. So I'll first say Kabbalah, I'm sure all of us have heard different things about it, maybe good, maybe bad. I was born into it, right? So you may think like I was always loving it and always dialed into it. During my college stint, I actually didn't want to be a part of it at all. So I didn't like that it was like the association. Whenever people were like, oh, you're with the Kabbalah Center. I actually went away from it, and I was ashamed of it. And I had a lot of pain during those years, and I was like, I'm going to figure out a life of meaning and purpose without this form of spirituality, without Kabbalah, and I'll find something else. It took me to get to a really empty place, like I mentioned earlier, where I was like, okay, you know what, I'll be open to this. I still didn't really believe in it, but I said I'll try it. So I asked my parents, like, what is Kabbalah? How do I practice it? And the things that they told me were things that I knew internally already. It wasn't like, it sounds like this like crazy wisdom. That was my understanding of it initially. My dad's like, just be more kind to people, or just try to share before you look to take. It's like principles that we grew up with and that we've heard our whole lives, but it's very practical and very tangible. As far as how I apply it to my business, I'll give a couple like real life examples, and Esther mentioned the podcast too. In my business, I think I'm a young founder, so people that work for me are typically all older than me, except for Michael, and they're in their 40s and 50s. One of our guys came from Tesla, so he has 20 years plus of experience. He could look at me and say, you know, this guy's 20 years old. He has no idea what he's doing. But the way that I teach, the way that I employ them, and the way that I work with them is very spiritual in nature. So unlike other companies, I always put my employees first. Like if they want something, if they want to take off early to go be with their kid and pick them up from school, that's fine. If they want to take off for a holiday, that's fine. As opposed to being like, okay, the business would get hurt if they leave early, or it's not best for the company. I never put that first. I'd rather my employees be happy and the company hurt in the short term, because I know we'll benefit in the long term. So I think that being able to pull spirituality into your business is the only way to be successful. Some of the most successful people on the planet, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, they may not be outspoken about it, but they absolutely practice some form of spirituality, because it's impossible to scale something so large if you don't pull God or the creator into the company. It doesn't have any light force to it.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, because we have to finish at 12:30. Sure. So I wanted to finish with, how do you hope to be remembered, or like what legacy do you want to leave behind? Because I remember there's one Shabbat, David's father is Michael Berg. He's the founder of the co-founder of the Kabbalah Center. And every Shabbat he gives lectures about the parasha, with different topics. And there was one Shabbat, I don't remember, not so long ago, he spoke about how do you leave a legacy, not like for the long run, for like infinite legacy. So how do you hope to do that?
Yeah, I would say first, it's way more important to me to impact many people, whether I'm the one that's remembered for it or not. Like I could care less if my name's on a banner or if I put my name on the school. Like that never excited me. But to create something that everybody will be impacted for generation after generation, even way after I'm gone, is something that I'm most excited about. I love talking to people that are younger than I am, especially because I'm close enough in age to where I can relate to them. And so really being able to inspire and influence people that are in high school and college, letting them know that there actually is a path to be successful and spiritual, even though it might not seem that way when you're younger, is something that I'm really passionate about, whether that's through a business or just through something that I do on the side. But that was sort of the intention behind the podcast, is how do we merge the worlds of success and spirituality? I interview some of the most successful people on the planet. Some are actors, some are entrepreneurs. But the idea is, how do we inspire the next generation? So it wasn't an easy time for me when I was in high school and college. I was just not taking it seriously. And so I want people that are there now to have a better, more positive experience. So that's my sole desire for that.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you for having me.
And I just wanted everyone, if you want, you can leave your phone number here, because David has a group chat on WhatsApp called Limitless. So do you want to just a few words
sure.
about that?
It's a group chat of a couple hundred people from around the world, and I just post daily words of inspiration, consciousness, spirituality, sometimes business related, sometimes not. No cost to join. You're just part of it, and you get to meet some cool people. So yeah. definitely happy to have it all.
Okay, perfect. Thanks guys so much.
Thank
you, David.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys.